Welcome all. Today we are about to start with a new chapter, control and coordination. See, in this chapter you can see it has got two parts, control and coordination. Human body is controlled by a system called as nervous system, and it is coordinated by a system called endocrine system. So this chapter deals with endocrine system and nervous system. To start with are unicellular organisms. In unicellular organisms, you can see there is only one cell, and the one cell performs all the functions. So here you do not have any particular type of organ or organ system. But in case of multicellular organisms, life shows different complex life processes. In plants as well as in animals, there are certain chemical and electrical signals which pass on throughout the body. In case of plants, there are phototrophs. This phototropic nature is one of the good example for the transmission of chemical signals. In photosynthesis, many biochemical reaction takes place, and this is how the chemical signals pass on in plants. In case of animals, we respond to the surroundings. We respond to the changes in the surroundings as certain chemical and electrical signals pass on in our body. It is called as reflex action. So these are the two good examples of system control and coordination in plants and animals. So in this chapter, we are going to study about the two systems, nervous and endocrine system. These two systems go hand in hand and they bring about control and coordination of different cells, organs, tissues, and organ systems of our body. Let us start with the lower phylum, that is the lower organisms coming under phylum Porifera. In porifers, we see there are only cells, no tissues. The body is completely made up of aggregation of cells. The cells performs the function of digestion, respiration, excretion, and so on. But nervous system is absent in them. So here you have to note that in phylum Porifera, there is no nervous system present. Next is phylum Cnidaria. In phylum Cnidaria, we see organisms like that of Hydra, jellyfish, Aurelia, and so on. Now, here in Cnidaria, a bit difference you can see in the body structure as the body consists of tissue system. As it shows tissue systems, the work is being slightly divided into in different tissues. These are primitive organisms and they show nervous system in the form of nerve net. Here you can see presence of nerve cells and sensory cells. So there are two types of nerve nets which are present in Cnidarians, that is in Hydra, and both are present in Mesoglia. Now what do you mean by Mesoglia? Mesoglia is a region which is present between epidermis and endodermis. If you remember, last year we have studied about the coelom system, and in higher organism, the coelom is completely formed, whereas in these lower organisms, that is epidermis and endodermis, mesodermis is absent. That is, mesoderm is absent. So here you can see there are two nerve net. One is in epidermis, and the second nerve net is in gastrodermis. As you can see here, what points you need to remember in this is I'll tell you where you have to focus on. Like for example, first part, that is the nervous system shows nerve cells and sensory cells. Second, the nerve cell shows two nerve nets. One nerve net is present in epidermis, another is present in gastrodermis. Now, as you see here, the activation of sensory cells takes place, and these sensory cells will be helping in catching the reflexes which are in its surrounding. The best one are the nerve net which is present in the tentacles, or the nerves which are present in tentacles. What they do is they get the signal of the food material present in its vicinity. अगर इनके आसपास अगर कोई food material है, तो the signal is taken by the tentacles with the help of nerve net. Next is phylum Ctenophora. Phylum Ctenophora is slightly advanced than that of phylum Cnidaria. Here you take an example of animal called as Ctenoplana. Ctenoplana shows some features of advanced animals, like they show central nervous system, primitive type of central nervous system, wherein there is presence of cerebral ganglia. This cerebral ganglia is nothing but the brain in case of these organisms. It shows brain in case of these organisms. It is called as cephalic or cerebral ganglia, which is present at the anterior most part of the body. This cerebral ganglia, you can see, is branched into two parts. That is, it shows two nerve cords on either side. Cerebral ganglia shows branches on both the sides, and these branches are called as nerve cord. As in our case, the brain extends to form spinal cord. Here you can see the brain extends to form nerve cords. From these nerve cords, different ganglia arises. There are 9 branches, and in this, different ganglia arises. Here you can see that the nerve nets or the nerve cords, they are joined with each other or interconnected by a transverse nerve. You can see these transverse nerves, which are also called as commissures. Okay. Peripheral nerve plexus arises from the ventral nerve cords. From the nerve cords also on the sides, you can see peripheral nerves are given out. From both the sides of the nerve cord, nerves are given out. So this is about the nervous system which is present in phylum Ctenophora. And again, this question is very important. Along with the diagram, you have to do it. A pair of photosensory structure, that is the eyes. The presence of eyes you can see first time in case of phylum Ctenophora. Now come to the main part of the chapter, that is neural tissue. Neural tissues are of two types. One is neurons and other is neuroglia. One is neurons and other is neuroglia or neuroglial cells. What are neurons? Neurons are the structural and functional cells of the nervous system, and supporting these neurons are neuroglial cells. The number of neuroglial cells are always more than that of neurons. The similarity in these two is their origin is from ectoderm. दोनों का origin ectoderm से है. So this is a similarity which you can see in neurons and neuroglial cells. As I told you earlier, neurons are less in numbers, neuroglia are more in numbers. Neurons के examples are sensory motor mixed neurons. Neuroglial, you can see ependymal cells, Schwann cell, microglia, and many more. We are going to study them along with their diagram and their description. This difference is again very important. Now the next part is different types of neuroglials with their functions and the diagram you can see here. Okay, now what are those? Starting you can see is with oligodendrocytes. What are these? Oligodendrocytes are present in central nervous system. इनका काम क्या है? Now, before starting with the main part, you have to remember one thing, that in the neuron, there are 3 parts, cyton, dendron, and axon, where cyton is called as gray matter and axon is called as white matter. इसके आगे भी ये term हम बार बार use करेंगे. Whenever I'm going to use a term gray matter, it will be cyton, and when I'll use the word white matter, it will be axon. So remember this thing. तो oligodendrocyte central nervous system का part है. What it does it is mainly form myelin sheath around the axons. When you study the structure of the neuron, you will see that the axons are surrounded by a covering, and that covering is called as myelin sheath, and it forms the white matter of CNS. So axon forms what? Axon forms the white matter of CNS. Now what is microglia or the brain macrophages? Whenever we use the term macrophages, the meaning is they engulf microbes, or they destroy the dead neurons, or they destroy the dead tissues in a particular organ. The same is the work which is done by microglia. They are present in central nervous system, and there they engulf the dead tissues formed by injuries, dead neurons, cellular debris, means whatever waste will be present in the CNS is being absorbed by this. In this way, it helps in the immune system by killing the microbes. Then comes astrocytes. Astrocytes have got the astros in a star-shaped body. They have various roles in the brain. That is, they secrete the neurotransmitters. Secretion and absorption of neurotransmitter is done by them. It maintains the BBB, that is blood-brain barrier. Means what? It will help in the secretion and absorption of CSF from the brain or the parts of the brain. That is called as BBB. So blood-brain barrier is what? It helps in the transport of CSF between the different parts of the brain. They regulate the transmission of electrical impulses within the brain. Whatever messages passed on in the body are being regulated by this astrocytes. Then comes ependymal cells. Ependymal cells are simple squamous or columnar cells which are present in the lining of the ventricles of brain and central canal of spinal cord. That is, internal lining of these organs is made by ependymal cells. What are they responsible for? So they are responsible for the production and circulation of CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, in the brain cavities and the central canal, which is a cavity of spinal cord. Schwann cells, where are they found? So they are found in peripheral nervous system. Schwann cells and satellite cells you see in peripheral nervous system. They produce myelin sheath around the medullated nerves of PNS. Only the medullated nerves of PNS means only the neurons of peripheral nervous system. Whereas myelin sheath in case of CNS is produced by oligodendrocytes and PNS may it is produced by Schwann cells. Satellite cells, they support the functions of the neurons and they are also present in peripheral nervous system. Now this question is also important along with the diagrams. Now comes the definition for nervous system. So this is the definition which you have to by heart. It has to be word to word. It is a system that controls and coordinates the body activities, conducts and integrates the information and responds to stimuli. It includes brain, spinal cord and nerves. It is made up of specialized cells called as neurons. So what it shows, it controls and coordinates the body activities, conducts and integrates the information and responds to stimuli. Stimuli means messages. It shows brain, spinal cord and nerves. And what are the cells? The specialized cells are called as neurons. Now what is neuron? It is a structural and functional unit of nervous system. What is a neuron made up of? As I told you earlier, it is made up of cell body cyton, dendron and axon. Now this diagram is again very important. At least 4 labelings you have to show for structure of neuron or nerve cell. This is the diagram showing neuron or nerve cell. It has got 3 major parts: cyton, axon and dendron. See what is present in the cyton now. In the cyton you see presence of cytoplasm, different cell organelles and Nissl granules. Now Nissl granules are certain proteinaceous granules, spherical structures which are present in this cyton. Now what are axons? This long elongated part is called as axon. It carries the messages away from the cyton. You can see the axon is surrounded by a covering. That covering is called as myelin sheath, which we have studied in the earlier part. Now here at the end you can see bulb-like structures are present. These bulb-like structures are called as synaptic knobs. Then comes dendrons. Dendrons are the parts which are surrounding the cyton. These are the branches surrounding the cyton. Dendrites are the branches of dendron and what they do is they transmit the impulse towards the cyton. ये messages को cyton के पास लेके आता है और ये जो axon है it carries the messages away from the cyton. So this question and the diagram both are very important. Now this is the structure of multipolar neuron. The neuron which we have seen just before is multipolar neuron. Multipolar neuron has got 3 parts: cyton or cell body, dendrons and axon. The cyton has a central nucleus, as you can see, with a nucleolus and neuroplasm. Neuroplasm is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm surrounds the nucleus around which there are neurofibrils. Now what are neurofibrils? Neurofibrils are the fibers which are coming out of cyton. Nissl granules are proteinaceous granules and other cell organelles are also present in it. Neurofibrils, they play a very important role in transmission of nerve impulse. That is, dendrons will bring the impulse to cyton and from cyton the neurofibrils will carry the impulse to axon. Nissl granules, as I said, they are riboprotein components and they help in the synthesis of enzyme which is required for the formation of neurotransmitter. Now what is neurotransmitter? Neurotransmitter is the chemical which will be helping in carrying our messages. It carries the messages from sense organs to the brain. Many small conical processes arise from the cyton and they are called as dendrons. The branches of dendrons are dendrites. Dendrons contains Nissl granules and neurofibrils. Both can be seen at the base of the dendrons. The function of dendrons is they transmit the messages towards the cyton. वो messages cyton के पास लेके आते हैं. Then comes axon. So axon, as you can see, is a single long process which is coming out from cyton. The point where the axon arises is called as axon hillock. Now what it shows, axons doesn't have presence of nizzle granules. नहीं है इसमें. They carry the messages away from the cyton. Axons may also give out branches. They are called as collaterals. And the end, terminal branch of the axon is called as telodendron. It is called as telodendron. Now these terminal branches, where they go and attach. So they go and attach to either the muscle, skin, gland, or the telodendrites of another neuron, which is the last part here. Now interconnection between the two neurons or the neuron with the motor organ is called synapse. Now what do you mean by motor organ? Motor organs are the organs which give response, like muscles, glands. These are the organs called as motor organs. The interconnection between the two neurons or between the neuron and the motor organ is called as synapse, is the junction of the two neurons. It is usually axon dendronic or maybe exoaxonic, exosomatic or dendrodendronic, means it may join axon with a dendron, axon with the axon, axon with any somatic organ or the body organ, or dendron with a dendron. Means in short क्या है synapse? Synapse, it is the junction of two neurons, जहाँ पे दो neurons एक दूसरे से join होते हैं. The cytons are generally found inside the brain, spinal cord, and in the ganglia. The small groups of cyton inside the white matter of the brain is called basal nuclei. That is, cyton gray matter है. अगर ये gray matter white matter के बीच में रहेगा, then it is called as basal nuclei. About this we are going to study in the further part. Connective tissue covering around the nerve fascicule is called as endoneurium. The connective tissue which covers the nerve is called as endoneurium. Few nerve fascicles with endoneurium are surrounded by a connective tissue called perineurium. Means internal is called as endoneurium, external is called as perineurium. And you can see large bundle of nerves which are covered outside by epineurium. The outside epineurium, then comes perineurium, and then comes epineurium. Blood is supplied to all the nerves to provide oxygen and nutrients. Now this question along with the diagram is very, very important. Now what are the types of neurons? As you can see here, there are three types. With the diagram it's given there. Multipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and unipolar neuron. Now what do you mean by multipolar neuron? The diagram which we have studied just before, जिसमें बहुत सारे dendrons है, एक axon है. So one axon, two or more dendrons, and which is generally seen in the cerebral cortex, that is the outer part of cerebrum. Bipolar means it will be having one axon and one dendron. Usually you can see this in the retina of the eye. That's the best example for it. Unipolar neuron क्या है? इसमें सिर्फ एक axon रहेगा. It shows only one axon and it is seen in our embryonal stage. So along with the diagrams, you have to study all the three types of neurons. Now, as I told you earlier, कि axon is surrounded by a myelin sheath. तो जिन axons में myelin sheath present है, those nerve fibers are called as medullated nerve fibers. जिन nerve fibers के axon में myelin sheath absent है, they are called as non-medullated nerve fibers. Once again, I am repeating. जिन neurons के axon को myelin sheath cover करता है, वो neuron है medullated. जिन neurons के axon को myelin sheath cover नहीं करता है, they are called as non-medullated neurons or nerves. Okay. Now, conduction of the impulse is 50 times faster. जो medullated neurons है, तो medullated neurons में you will see that the conduction of impulse is 50 times more. Okay. Whereas in non-medullated, you will see that the conduction of impulse is very slow. See, it's a short mistake over here. Here you need to write non-medullated. Here it is made medullated, non-medullated. यहाँ पे आप cancel करोगे non को. Then conduction of impulse is slower in medullated. यहाँ पे रहेगा non-medullated. Okay. So I'll tell you what change you need to make over here. Okay. In this, what change you have to do is, I'll let you know here. See, in this you have to cancel non-modulated, it will be modulated, and here you need to write here again. Okay, down okay, okay, fine, nowhere. And then the second difference, what is, here you need to add non-modulated. Okay, यहाँ पे non-modulated रहेगा, यहाँ पे non cancel होगा. Okay, that one thing you need to keep in mind. Clear? Then the insulating fatty myelin sheath prevents, what it does. Okay, ये myelin sheath का काम क्या है, तो it prevents the flow of ions between the exoplasm and extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid क्या है, एक्सॉन के बाहर का fluid, and exoplasm यानी एक्सॉन के अंदर का fluid. तो इनके बीच में continuous flow of ions ना हो, इसलिए myelin sheath वहाँ पे insulation का काम करता है. यहाँ पे myelin sheath absent है, तो here you can see there will be continuous flow of ions between the exoplasm and the extracellular fluid. Saltatory conduction यानी jumping of the impulse आपको इसमें दिखेगा. Modulated nerve fibers में saltatory conduction यानी jumping of the impulse from one node to another node. जैसे आप यहाँ पे देखोगे तो you'll understand what I'm talking about. See, these are the nodes. This is 1, 2, 3. इसको nodes बोला जाता है. तो अगर impulse इधर से इधर jump करता है ऐसे, तो उसे बोला जाता है saltatory conduction. So this saltatory conduction is present in medullary nerve fibers and saltatory conduction is absent in non-medullary nerve fibers. Now we were talking about synapse. तो ये क्या है? It is a junction between the neurons with a minimum gap in between them which allow the transmission of impulse by a neurotransmitter. That is, only a neurotransmitter can pass through it carrying a message. सिनाप्स क्या है? वो एक्सॉन डेंड्रॉन के बीच में हो सकता है, एक्सॉन एक्सॉन के बीच में हो सकता है, एक्सॉन और किसी ऑर्गन के बीच में हो सकता है, या डेंड्रॉन एंड डेंड्रॉन के बीच में हो सकता है. तो इन शॉर्ट, इंटरकनेक्शन बिटवीन द टू न्यूरॉन और बिटवीन द न्यूरॉन एंड द मोटर ऑर्गन्स. मोटर ऑर्गन इसके पहले भी मैंने बोला था आपको, देयर विल बी आइदर ग्लैंड्स ऑफ द बॉडी या फिर muscles, is called as synapse. You have to note down all the definitions with the question answers in your notebooks. Now, what are the properties of nerve fibers? Now, explanation for properties is not there in detail in your syllabus. You just have to know or enlist the properties here. Excitability, conductivity, stimulus, summation effect, all or none law, refractory period, synaptic delay, synaptic fatigue, and velocity. So these are different properties of nerve fibers. If the question comes, enlist the properties, you only have to write down the name of these properties. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll stop here.